Hello, Ocholi Okutepa is my name. I'm excited to continue the teaching on financial disposition, and today we're just going to look at a very simple subject on the financial plan. All right, so I say to a lot of people, do not marry anybody who simply has a faith that is not actionable. All right, faith is a financial plan, but it is a wrong or poor financial plan when it's not an actionable plan. All right, so you may be in the life of a man who is just like me, who asks his wife out as a third-year university student, who lived essentially on pocket money, no job. I mean, nothing you could really say, this is what I'm going to bank on. All right, but what I had was conversation that were convincing. All right, so I made convincing conversation. But what makes a conversation convincing when it comes to, financial plan, first of all, is the disposition I spoke about in the first part of this video. So my disposition, or the disposition of the person, ought to be one that is faith-based. All right, their faith is in God. All right, number two is for a plan to be bankable and trustable, they must have exercised their faith in the past in a practical sense. What do I mean? So like I was teaching the first part of the video, their confidence and trust is in God. They see God as their source, but you also have a history of what they have done with money, how they have been able to multiply money, how they have been able to do something with money. All right, so do not take plan both for male or female without paying attention to the historical backing of the conversations they make. So someone is saying, you know what, the future is bright. I know that right now it may be challenging. What you want to know is what happened to the past. All right, because sometimes while we don't dwell in the past is a revealer of the future. So I want to see your record. I want to see how you have done. Even for people who have made losses, it doesn't mean that, that's all for them. But even if they have made losses in life, what lessons did they pick and how do they approach even the loss they made? All right, now going forward, you now need to have a financial plan. Do not marry anybody who do not at least have a financial plan. Oh yes, God determines all things, like God, is the ultimate and is Him we trust even with our plans. But what is your plan? All right, so for instance, if they're in paid employment, how long do they want to remain in paid employment? All right, number two, if they're in paid employment and you're in paid employment, can you afford the life you dream of right now? All right, because dreams are in phases. All right now we may be able to start life at this level. Can we even afford it? Now, what does that afford you to do? It affords you the opportunity to understand what your joint financial worth can do and what you need to pray about. So, for instance, one of you may be squatting, as is very common, or one of you may be leaving your parents' house, as is very common. Can we put together on the table what the bill of our new life is? All right, because some people don't even think about this. Forgetting that before we met at the eatery to eat, we left the house where we're not paying rent. We left the house where we're not even responsible for the meals in the house. All right, perhaps we contribute to it, or we don't even contribute at all. So you need to count the cost of being married, all right, to yourselves. You need to count the cost of going forward. So I just laugh at some people. They're so in love, students. Some people get money and being in love. Keep being in love. All right, so you need to find out what the difference between where we are now and where we are about to head. Because for some people, they're already paying bills, so it's easier to understand. Some people are not paying bills. You need to have a financial plan. All right, now be wary of anybody who just says, let's go ahead and see how it goes. How it goes, that's how hunger catch people. All right, so you need to come to the point where you are able to make practical financial plan. It exposes your strength, it exposes your weakness, and it tells you what you need to pray about. Because some people do not even know they have prayer points. Some people's love is automatic prayer point. Because you're being in love in the broke state you are is a problem. Wedding you can't afford, living you can't afford, you need to begin to make financial plan. All right, so don't just allow the emotions becloud you. And that's why you see some people, the love lasts for only a while. Then when reality begins to hit, the love begins to pack up. All right, so financial plan is one of the ways you even ensure that your love does not pack up. All right, so you put on the table what exactly. So two things I'll talk about very quickly in this particular part two of this whole conversation, and leave it for today, is this. Number one, what's the cost of transition? A lot of people do not think about this. Because if you do not plan around transition, I mean, you may find yourself in some murky waters. All right, now this conversation does not apply to some people who are from very rich homes or people who have made it already financially. It applies to the other people, you know, who may have to bear this cost. And especially if you're in Nigeria and Africa, welcome to cost of transition. As a guy, when you get the list from your babe's family, you will know whether you're in love or not. I mean, your entire love will come under test. All right, so you must check the cost of transition. Now, why are you checking the cost of transition? When you check the cost of transition, you would also ask yourself, what are my transition advantage? Or what are the advantages that I can take, you know, in the transition process? I'll just confess my own. I am first son, first child. All right, my dad was going to be a very key factor. Like I used to jokingly tell people, I married through crowdfunding. I mean, if it was based on the salary I was earning, then I will not be married. All right. So now, if you do not begin to count the cost, you will not even know your own advantage in transition. So you see a big wedding, you know, you walk into the hall and you're like, how did they do it? Oh God, I'll not marry for 50 years. No. When you begin to count the cost, you begin to find your advantage. What are your points of advantage? Who is that uncle that may be interested, you know, to get involved? Who are those friends who will not give until you announce a wedding? All right, so that's the first cost you count. You count the cost of transition, and you now see what are the advantages I have in the transition process. What are the disadvantages? Now, disadvantages should not automatically knock you out. It now shows you what your prayer points are. All right, the next cost you will count is the cost of the off-take of the marriage. All right, marriage is going to start. Okay, I'll give you some examples. If you don't have a house already, you are living in, or you're not paying bills right now, you begin to count the cost of rent. You begin to count the cost, you know, of having a wife. All right, off-take, or the cost of having a husband. All right, and you know, you can't see if you have been eating, you know, noodles, or you have been eating biscuit and drink tea and sleep. It's not going to happen. Or a marriage has happened. You know, here you can be simple and straight to the point, but life is just going to demand more for you. So what's the cost of the off-take of the marriage itself? Because there's an off-taking point, then there's a surviving point, then there's a thriving point. All right, you must not go through all of it. Some people never had to survive. But if you have to go through all of that, what is it going to be? All right, because some people are living in a place right now that is all fine and good because they're not paying rent, they're not paying bills, you know, and they're just going to move and they're going to start life. All right, so when you count all of these costs, it brings you to something. Two key things it brings you to. Number one, like I said, it shows you your strengths and your disadvantages. Then number two, it gives you the opportunity to agree. If any two of you shall agree as touching anything, let me say this to you in closing. If you want your relationship to be run by how much you have or don't have, you are in soup. All right? All of this will bring you to the point where you learn to know what to pray about. So that you're not just in each other's life waiting for when the rain will fall. No, you come to the point where you join your hands together and trust the Lord to cause the rain to fall if you need the rain to fall. I really hope you are blessed by this. I'm going to continue this teaching series in the next part. God bless you.